Have you ever had someone believe in you before you believed in yourself? Someone who looked at you, not at what you'd already accomplished and not at your resume or track record, but who you could become. And they said, I see it. I believe in you. If you've ever had that experience, you know how completely it can change the direction of a life. Now, here's the question I want to propose to you today. What if Jesus did that consistently, deliberately, with the most unlikely people he could find? I'm Bill, and this is the greatest leadership story ever told, a 5-episode series where we look at the good news of Jesus, not just as the most important story in history, but as the most complete picture of leadership ever lived. Today, we're looking at the moment Jesus met a fisherman named Simon and called him something he had absolutely no business being called yet. Let's dive in. John chapter 1, verse 42, here's the scene. So Andrew, one of John the Baptist's followers, has just met Jesus, and he's so convinced by what he's seen that he immediately goes to find his brother. He brings Simon to Jesus. And John tells us, Jesus looked at him and said, You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas, which when translated is Peter. Interesting exchange here. There's no interview, nothing like, can you tell me about a time when there's no probationary period. There's none of that. Jesus looks at this man, a rough around the edges fisherman who, as far as we know, has never led anything. And he gives him a new name, Cephas. It's Peter, the rock. Now, if you know anything about the story that follows, you know how almost comically wrong that name seems at first. Simon Peter is impulsive. He speaks before he thinks, cuts off a soldier's ear in the garden, and he denies Jesus 3 times, loudly and emphatically, and it's with a string of denials. Nobody watching Simon in those early days would have named him the rock. But Jesus wasn't looking at who Simon was. He was looking at who Simon would become. And this is not an isolated moment. This is a pattern throughout the gospel. Zacchaeus, a despised tax collector who had cheated his own people, he climbs a tree just to catch a glimpse of Jesus in a crowd. And Jesus stops, looks up and says, I'm coming to your house today. Now, this is not after Zacchaeus cleans up his life. Right then, Jesus saw something in him before anything had changed. And then we have Matthew, another tax collector, was sitting in his collection booth. Here's 2 words from Jesus, follow me. And he gets up and follows. Jesus had an extraordinary ability to see past the surface, past the failure, past the reputation and all the rough edges, and speak to the person that was waiting on the other side. So how does this land for those of you who are aspiring leaders? One of the most consistent things I've seen in my HR experience, sitting in on performance reviews or succession planning conversations, even hiring decisions, it's that most leaders manage what they can see. They look at the current performance, the current behavior, what's in front of them right now. And that's not wrong, but the leaders who are invested in developing people, who built teams that outperform what anyone expected, well, they did something different. They looked further than the current data. That is what Jesus did with Simon. He didn't manage who Simon was. He called out who Simon would become. He named the potential before the performance caught up to it. Here's the one thing I want you to carry out of this episode. The best leaders see potential in people before they see it in themselves. It's not after the performance review confirms it, not once they've proven it, before. That's when it matters most. So here are a couple of questions I want to leave you with this week. Who on your team do you need to consider their potential? And then what will you communicate with them about that potential? There may be a Simon in your world right now someone rough around the edges, inconsistent, not living up to their potential. The question is whether you have the vision and the courage to say their new name out loud before they've earned it. And now, next episode, we're looking at the most radical act of accountability in human history and what it means for how you lead. I'll see you in the next episode of the greatest leadership story ever told.